Hello, and you are listening to Nate's Notes, a podcast about pop culture and sports. I'm one of your co-hosts, Nate Jones, and with me, as always, is Griffin Schuler. How are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm ready for the episode.
That's great. We're both really excited. This is the time of year when sports are not as active. News is not as happening. There isn't like the biggest news waiting for you every time you check your phone. It's kind of nice, but it's kind of dry when you're a sports podcast. So there's not a ton of news this week. And so we thought we'd do something a little different. We're going to go all pop culture this episode, and we're going to go all TV shows this episode. So to give you guys a rundown of what we're going to be talking about today and kind of what to expect, is we're going to talk about our 3 favorite TV shows. And the biggest point of this is we're going to try to convince the other co-host and you, the listeners, to watch the show. So maybe you've watched it, maybe you haven't, maybe you've heard a lot about it. This should get you to watch it, or maybe we do such a bad job of selling it that you never watch the show. So one of two things will probably happen this episode. But we're going to talk about favorite TV shows. And so I'm kind of excited to see what Griffin has. I think we might have some similar ones here. It wouldn't surprise me. It seems like we do have a very similar sense of humor, so we might have similar favorite TV shows. What are you most excited about for this episode, Griffin?
So actually, I think what I'm most excited about is that I took this topic in a way where I tried to come up with 3 TV shows that aren't like obvious shows that, you know, the most of the general population has seen.
Okay.
So I've actually left some of my favorites off the list just because I think it's a lot of people's favorites. And
okay.
So, you know, me telling somebody like, oh, watch this show, like when they've already seen it 5 times, doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me personally. So I try to go that route of, you know, 3 TV shows that you probably haven't seen or you've seen, you know, just a little bit of. Or you've never heard of at all, and so it'll be a lot easier for me to sell it, I think, if the listener hasn't heard of it or seen it, and so they want to try something new.
Yeah, I took a little bit of a similar approach there too. There are a couple of shows that, you know, the shows I watch, my favorite ones, I watch 1,000 times over and over again. I know almost every line. There's about like 7 or 8 shows that I'm like that with. They're like almost my comfort shows where, you know, I had a bad day or my mood needs bringing up. I'll just watch one of those shows. I don't care what episode. I'll just throw something on. I didn't throw some of those in just because, kind of like you said, they're already really popular. Most people have already watched them. And I kind of wanted to give, you know, maybe shows that don't have as much love. So I think we're kind of on the same wavelength there.
Right on. All right, that sounds great.
Awesome. So, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give one, and then I'm assuming you'll give one.
Yep.
Is that how we want to do it?
Yeah.
All right. So first on the list is definitely my favorite TV show of all time. It's probably not everybody's favorite, and I know that I've heard of some people saying it's the worst show ever. So it's a very split decision on this particular show. But do you have any guesses as to what my favorite show of all time is?
Ooh.
I don't know if I've mentioned it to you before.
Yeah, I have a couple of guesses here. I want to say Game of Thrones, but I'm not. I'm like 90% sure on that one.
So I'll get to that show in a little bit,
okay.
But it's not Game of Thrones, and actually it's the TV series Lost.
Oh, okay.
Lost, I believe, started back in 2004.
Okay.
September 22nd, 2004 on ABC. Had over 6 seasons of a total of 121 episodes. So kind of a throwback back in the day. I remember kind of starting the show on TV and then finishing the show on Netflix.
Okay. Yep.
When the show first was airing and I first started watching it, I was definitely too young to like fathom or like comprehend all the stuff that was going on in the show.
Okay, yeah.
If anyone listening has seen it, they probably understand what I'm talking about when I say, like, as a kid, like, there was so much going on that I couldn't keep up with it all. And even, like, this is definitely one of those shows where you watch it several times. Like, if you watch it several times or the second or third time, you start to notice things you didn't notice before.
Okay.
No matter what age you are.
Yeah.
And that's why I like it so much. It's because it's so complicated, but it's like strategically complicated. Like I like how there's like recurring symbols and connections between the characters and different I guess protagonists and antagonists on the show.
Okay.
It definitely is a show that kind of went off the rails towards the end, like most shows do.
Yeah.
But the first half of the series is so good for me that it's just it will forever be my favorite show. I just enjoy it so much.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've watched a little bit of Lost. I had a teacher, I think back in like 11th grade, that loved Lost, and I felt like we watched it like every other week. It was an English class, and he loved the writing in it, so we watched a lot of that. But he would choose really good episodes, and then I'd try to get into it, like, oh, I really am gonna start this, and I never was quite able to get into it the way I wanted to. So for those of you who haven't watched it, so Griffin, can you like give the biggest selling point? So maybe tell people what the show is most about and what you think the best part of it is, and maybe some tips to keep going. So sometimes shows are a little slow in the beginning. Maybe some tips to keep them inspired to watch all the way through.
Sure. Yeah. So just a couple of the things I love the most about the show is there's so many cliffhangers and like left field turns or whatever the saying is, where it's just like things coming out of left field.
Yeah.
And then the symbolism too is just something that's so like fun for me to try and, see like these small details that all connect with other small details as you continue on to watch. And it's something you'll only notice when you like go back and rewatch it. I just like how it builds off of each episode builds off the other. And it's just continually is entertaining. And there's so many different storylines. There's so many different characters that, if you don't like a certain storyline or a certain character, you're bound to like a different character and storyline.
Okay.
And so also I think for me, the idea of being stuck on a island in the middle of the nowhere and trying to make your survive and make your way back home.
Yeah.
It's kind of an enticing idea to me. It's not something it's not a situation I ever want to be in, obviously. Especially
for sure.
Like being in an airplane crash is, one of my top fears, probably rationally, I think. But they're stuck on this island and they're trying to, get back home. But this island that they're stuck on is so mysterious, and like it just continues. Like more mysteries start to unravel on the island for this cast of characters, and so there's just constant entertainment for the main characters going through, discovering different parts of this island.
Yeah, that's great. That sounds really enticing. Have you watched the show all the way through more than once? And if so, how many times have you watched the show in its entirety?
Oh, absolutely. I think all the way through in its entirety, from start to finish, I want to say I've done 3 times.
Okay.
But keep in mind, the episodes, I believe, are an hour long. I think the first season has 22 episodes or 24 episodes in it, so it's a long first season, and then it like goes down narrowly from there to like 20 episodes, and then 18 and then 18 again, something along those lines. So lots of time for these episodes for the whole season. And I think the fastest I've ever watched it at all was within like a month, which is kind of insane if you think about it. The ending is a little rough. A lot of people don't like it. I think I've come to just accept it. I don't know if like is the correct term for me, but I've come to accept the ending. And I definitely think it's better than some of the other shows I've watched and their endings. So I just think the beginning, the middle is just so good that the end is manageable.
Yeah, that helps, at least, it wasn't, it could have been worse, I guess, thinking about it.
Yeah.
All right, so since you went with your favorite show of all time, I think I'll do my favorite show of all time. And this one is, the way I explain this, and I was kind of just thinking of it as you were finishing up there, Griffin, and it's kind of dorky, I guess, but this show to me is my transition from the Disney Channel into normal TV. So this was the show that I started watching instead of like the Disney Channel, and then that kind of got me all the way in. I would just watch like it was random repeats and all that, and then eventually I got on to like the normal show, and that's How I Met Your Mother. And you talked a little bit how you watched Lost like 3 times all the way through. I have probably watched How I Met Your Mother all the way through 15 to 20 times. Oh my gosh. It is my number one like rewatch show. It is the show that makes me the happiest probably when I just sit down and watch it. And, a lot of times it's background noise. Like I'll just throw it on and I'll do other things while it's on. But I've never gotten tired of it. So, like several times, I have finished a run through and just gone back to the first episode and all the way through, and I've just never gotten tired of it. And I have some episodes where, if Netflix, I'll skip that one instead of watching it. So it's not like a perfect show 100%. But to me, the reason why I love it so much is I think the characters are really interesting, intriguing, and funny. And I also think that it's more than just a love story. There's like a drama. It's more than just a comedy. There's, there's a lot of dynamics about friendships, how friendships can change relationships, how relationships can change friendships. And all of that to me is just, it's really well told. Excellent foreshadowing, because the whole show is this guy telling his kids how he met the mother, so he knows how all of this ends. And so throughout the way the show is kind of told, there's a lot of foreshadowing, and on your different run-throughs you'll see something you never saw that's been there the whole time, which to me is really cool. Now, a lot of people are talking about disappointing finales. A lot of people dislike this last season and finale with all of their heart. I am one of the few that enjoyed it. At the end, I was like, this is okay with me. I didn't like most of the season. They did a weird thing where the whole last season, 20-something episodes, took place over 2 days. And to me, that was kind of disappointing because you're stuck in basically this hotel all the last 20-something episodes, except for the season finale. That one was over several years. So, and they did something where, for those of you who don't know, they're leading up some other, this whole 8 seasons, the 9th season, you think you're going to get to know the mother super well. You really don't. And a lot of people are upset with how that was handled, and I was okay with it. I enjoyed the stuff of the mother we got, but I also loved how they tied things up for every other character. And yeah, still one of my favorite shows, and it is fun for me to rewatch every single time, no matter how many times Kelsey gets annoyed when I start it over again.
So I personally, I also watched that show quite a bit as a kid, going through like I think high school or middle school.
Yeah.
But I just was never entertained enough to watch it from like start to finish in
Okay.
order.
Yeah.
And I never actually made it to the finale or even really close to the finale. So I actually I figured out who the mom is. And, you know, I think that's like what everybody watches the show now for, is to figure out, you know, the reveal on who it is. I just haven't like been enticed enough to spend the time to figure it out. So is there anything you want to say to try and sell me on finishing up that series?
Yeah, so I will say, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, if you were watching this show solely on the mother reveal and then that whole part of it, you're going to be severely disappointed. What they
That's
do...
not a good selling point, mate.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, I have had people where my girlfriend Kelsey, this is what happened, is I got her into the show. It's one of my favorite shows. I make references to it all the time. And so I was like, I really want you to watch it. And I want you to, like, she had kind of what you had. She's like, she'd watched it in high school, but she'd never seen to the mother reveal or past that. And I was like, just watch it. You'll love it. She fell in love with it. She watched it all the way through. And then what they did in the final season ruined the show for her. She really does not want to. There's a couple episodes she loves rewatching, but she does not like to rewatch that show. And a lot of the complaints are what happened with it. So, and the show does lend itself to where you were like really invested in who this mother is going to be. And so if you don't like that ending, it really hurts the show. So my pitch to you is only watch the first 8 seasons. And to me, that's a perfect ending if you're really in love with the whole mother idea. So you get all the way up, and at the end of the 8th season, you see who the mother is. So you put a face to the name, and yeah, you never get to see Ted, the main character, and the mother meet. But I think that's a whole lot better than suffering through the last season and then be sorely disappointed. And if you look up top 10 most disappointing series finales, this one is near the top at a lot of them. And so, but to keep you intrigued, this is a terrible selling point. I should not be a salesman. It has great music in the show. The characters are really funny, and the story is fun to follow. But disclaimer still there. If you were all in on the mother, stop at the end of season 8.
Okay. I can probably guarantee that I will not finish that show based off of that selling argument.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to move on to our number 2s?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. So, to kind of, well, first, actually, I want to defend myself a little bit for my first answer.
Yeah.
How you asked how many times I've watched it from start to finish, and I said 3 times.
Yep.
And you said yours was 15. So to kind of, you know, give some context, I don't think I've ever watched any show more than twice.
Okay.
That's including like The Office, Parks and Rec,
Okay.
Game of Thrones, like lots of different shows that are really good. I usually only watch once or twice because I just like to start new shows. So I've got a lot of shows under my belt.
Okay.
And for me to watch the marathon of Lost 3 times is bigger than it sounds. All right. So I just wanted to give context to that. So moving on to my second one, this kind of came off the back end of watching Game of Thrones.
Okay.
And being super disappointed in season 8, I believe is the last season.
Yeah.
So anyone that's watched Game of Thrones knows what I'm talking about. If they don't, they are insane. But the ending of Game of Thrones was super disappointing, and more rather, it was just irritating from what the writers gave us.
Yeah.
And so that is not going to be in my top 3 list because of that ending.
Yeah.
If it had ended well, that would probably be my favorite TV show of all time, to be honest.
Okay.
But because of how poorly it ended, it won't be on this list.
Wow.
And the fact that a lot of people have probably already seen it anyways. So that being said, after ending that series, we still had HBO for the next couple weeks. And so you actually recommended the show Barry to us.
Awesome.
And so that Barry, the TV series on HBO, is my second TV series that is on my list that I think everybody should watch because, one, I don't think a lot of people know about it.
No.
And two, it is extremely entertaining and extremely funny. And it's written and starred by Bill Hader, who was on SNL for most of our generation would know him from.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, as you know, it's just so entertaining. It's really fun concept of a, like, master hitman who, like, was in the army and then, is basically used by his uncle to create contracts and carry out hits on people. And that's how they make a living. And then it's just kind of this character, Bill Hader's character, Barry, exploring life outside of being a hitman.
Yep.
But he, like, ironically and comically has to keep killing people in order for the story to kind of go on. And there's lots of twists and turns, and it's like for such a serious plot line of him being a hitman and, like, he kills people, like, it's super funny. And there's one episode in particular that just stands out to me as, like, a must watch, but I highly recommend watching the ones before it to have more context for this episode. But the episode is called Ronnie/Lily, and it's the episode in season 2. I think it's episode 5. Barry is tasked with killing a certain person in order to not be killed himself by a different group or not be turned in by a cop. I mean, and this person he has to kill ends up being a Taekwondo master, and so it's just like what happens when they encounter each other is just absolutely hilarious. And I won't say any more. I'll just leave it up to the audience to watch that one. It's just super funny, and that's my selling point right there. Is just such a fun, different plot line that is very masterful in becoming funny or in being funny.
Yeah, no, I 100%. For a long time, I was a salesman for Barry, and I'm glad you're one of the people that hopped aboard the train with me, because I was watching it and I was like, I feel like no one else is watching this, but this is so freaking good. Like, every week there's a turn, it doesn't go the way you thought it would. The acting to me is absolutely insane, both comedic and dramatically as well. Griffin, you know this, but Bill Hader is playing a character who is very conflicted in almost every single action he does, and the way he plays that is extremely well done. And
he's phenomenal in it.
Oh, so
he's
good.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, he has a lot more range than I think people thought he does, but a lot of the cast were nominated for Emmys this year. Barry got 17 Emmy nominations this year.
Wow.
Yeah, and you'll notice this one from the episode you just mentioned, but they actually got nominated for stunt coordination for that episode and some of the shenanigans they get into in that one. So that's pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is super cool.
Yep. Henry Winkler, he plays the acting teacher. He was nominated for supporting actor. Anthony Carrington was nominated for supporting actor. Stephen Root, who plays his uncle, was nominated for an Emmy as well. Bill Hader was nominated. It seemed like most of the principal cast was nominated,
and respectively, like they should be. Like, that's how well done it is, and
yeah,
it was such good relief after the disappointment in what Game of Thrones was.
Yeah.
So here's a good selling point. If anyone is going through kind of the hangover period of what is Game of Thrones season 8, watch Barry. It'll instantly make you feel better.
Yeah, and another one I was really happy. So Anthony Kerrigan, who I mentioned, who's nominated for supporting actor, he's probably one of my favorite characters on the episode. He plays NoHo Hank, and he is just an incredibly funny character. And if you just if you start watching the show, you'll notice NoHo Hank right away. And I'm so glad he got nominated for an Emmy because I don't think he did last year. But this season, especially, they really build up his character. And yeah, fantastic show. Great choice, Griffin.
I'm glad you brought up his character because I didn't do the justice of bringing up his character.
Yeah.
It is so funny. It is definitely one of I think it's the best part of that show is his character. Just the way he like says things, and he's just so nonchalant about everything. He's polite, as he'll put it. It's so funny. So yeah, easy choice for me.
Yeah, that's a great one. All right, now I'm kind of disappointed I didn't put it there in my top 3 list, but so I'll talk about my number 2 one. So that's a great one. I feel like you have just succeeded in getting people to watch a show. I feel like so far it's been, not sure because we talked about disappointing endings, but Barry's still going, so there's no disappointment to look forward to yet. So that's great. So my second one is one of my favorite shows, and I rewatch certain episodes for the most part, and I feel like this show is also underrated. And I have gotten quite a few of my friends to watch it, which I'm pretty proud of. And this is Community. It's 6 seasons. It stars Joel McHale, Donald Glover, Allison Brie, Ken Jeong, John Oliver for a little bit, a whole lot of cast of characters. It really is one of those group sitcoms, but it takes place in a community college, for those of you who don't know, and it's people from all these different backgrounds that are either starting college on time or trying to find a new start for themselves, or a terrible experience happened and they're trying to go to community college to get their life back on track. It is extremely funny, and I would almost categorize it as a weird show. They do a lot of like creative things with like filming. Like there's an episode in stop motion. They have a couple musical episodes. Their musical episodes are some of their best episodes. There's their paintball episodes. There's just like all these clever shows. Like the way they do the show is extremely clever, and yeah, it is so great. That's the selling point. I think you kind of need to just jump into the show, and all of a sudden it'll click. That's what I've found in recommending it to others is that it will just click as soon as you start it.
So I wanted to let you, say your whole spiel, but I didn't want to interrupt you while you're talking. But my thought the whole time was this is an excellent show, and I'm so glad you brought it up as your number 2 because I didn't. It is so funny. Another character on the show, or another actor on the show that you didn't mention that's pretty noteworthy is Chevy Chase.
Yep.
Plays a big role. And the creator of the show, the main writer, is Dan Harmon, who, for those of you who may listen or may watch his other shows he's created, he wrote what's the one that everyone goes crazy for? Rick and Morty.
Yep. Yeah.
He also has like another show that's pretty fun where they play Dungeons and Dragons, but it's like they animate their gameplay, so like everything that they're saying gets turned into a cartoon, and they get like special guests on that one who are pretty noteworthy celebrities, and that show's really fun. But yeah, you mentioned like all the different kinds of episodes. Dan Harmon just does such a good job of bringing pop culture into the show.
Yep.
And creating like kind of, knockoff isn't the right word because it kind of has like a bad connotation to it. But like he writes very similar plot lines or like ironic plot lines that follow close to like other popular shows or other pop culture. So like paintball turns into like Star Wars at one point.
Yeah.
Like there's too many to like comprehend, and it's just such a good show. And I think one of our favorite characters that we can both agree on, or favorite, just people, is Donald Glover, who this was kind of like one of his first real starts in entertainment, and like it's kind of cool to see where he started and where he is now, and the whole transformation he went through. Because I think once he leaves in season 4, I think, of Community to go pursue Childish Gambino, and obviously that became a huge success. And then now he's writing and directing his own TV show, Atlanta, which is getting a lot of awards, which I actually have never seen, and would like to start that one.
That is a good one.
But just like a super funny show, and like you said, super weird. So like if you like weird humor, it's good. And just it's a show where it just keeps you on your feet, because each episode can become its own storyline of just like the paintball episodes, or like they play Dungeons and Dragons, I think, for 2 episodes, and they're really funny, and it's just so different each episode, and it's really nice.
Yeah, no, and I also like how you don't see this a ton with sitcoms, but almost every episode connects in some way. Like they'll bring up jokes from like 5-10 episodes back because it relates to something like this, and most of it's through Abed, who's Troy is played by Donald Glover. They kind of have like this dynamic friendship that I think is like one of the highlights of the show for me. But yeah, it is great. Now, this show is on my list, but I'll give a quick selling point for Atlanta. I do love that show. In the same way that Community like does different style shows, or they switch it up, Atlanta does that in a way as well. They'll kind of play with the formatting of the show, where it won't be like, it's not really the same thing every single week. So that's a quick selling point for Atlanta.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely want to check that one out.
All right, you ready for number 3?
Yeah. So my last show is not so much a story. It's more entertainment TV, and it's Big Brother. Big Brother is a TV show or TV concept. It's pretty much a game show if you think about it.
Okay.
But it's more or less a social experiment where they put I don't know if it's a set number every year, but it's between like, I think it's around 16 people each season.
Okay.
They put 16 people in this house in California that's got cameras at every angle, and they are constantly on and monitoring them for 24 hours. And the people inside that go inside the house to compete don't have any access to the internet or their phones or the outside world. So they're completely secluded to themselves inside the house with each other, and everyone on the outside is able to, at any point in time, tune into them and see what they're doing. And it's kind of a super interesting concept. This show is based off of a book by George Orwell called 1984.
Yeah.
I personally have not read the book.
Okay.
But this show, like, I recently started. I think the first season I watched actually was last year, because I do it every summer. My girlfriend Holly is the one that really got me into the show, and she's watched multiple seasons and is super nerdy into it. She listens to podcasts about it. So she was the one that had me try it out, and I actually really enjoy it because it's entertaining in the way that like people get mad at each other and people conspire against each other and people get paranoid about everything. And so like it's the kind of drama, like naturally drama happens, and I like the show because that's what's supposed to happen. It's not like artificial drama. It's like natural drama almost. Like I'm not like artificial drama being like the Housewives of Orange County or whatever, like shows like that. I dislike. But also, to give more details on it, these people that go into the house, each week they all vote to evict one person. Each week there's a head of household who is not able to be evicted. They have all the power in the house, and they actually put up usually two people to be evicted, and then everyone in the house votes on those two people. And then in between that time, there's a competition called veto, where the two people that are nominated for eviction, plus the HOH, plus three people that they randomly draw, all compete for this power of veto. And the power of veto basically means they, whoever wins it can take one person off the block, including them, even themselves if one of the people on the block wins. And then the HOH has to put up a replacement, and then from there, everybody votes to decide who leaves. So each week, one person leaves the house normally, and then eventually you get down to the last two people. The last two people are then voted on by the last 10 people to leave the house, go to a jury house where they only watch like the competitions played out by the people still in the house.
Okay.
They still don't have any access to the online world where they could go back and look to see what happened. They purely go off of what their experience was in the house.
Okay.
And they vote for the winner at that point. So I think it's like 10 people are the jury, and they vote on who should win Big Brother between the last two people, and the winner gets $500,000.
Wow.
So it's a lot at stake, and it's just like the whole aspect of people betraying each other, like what's people's breaking points, what people would do, to like manipulate other people.
Yeah.
It's just a super interesting show. So I highly recommend that one. It's a good entertainment TV show out of all of the entertainment TV shows out there.
Yeah, that's great. You always see the commercials for it, and I've never really been interested in it, but that was a pretty good selling point there. Yeah, it's interesting. I guess I never really looked into like what it is, and I did not know there was that much prize money at stake. So that makes it, I think, a little more interesting since they're playing for that much. So
yeah, and there's like competitions throughout the summer where you can win like trips to like Fiji or the Bahamas, or like you can win $5,000 for some of them.
Huh.
Yeah, just like they keep it interesting. There's always twists every year. I think the duration of the time that they're in the house for the people that stay the longest is like 3 months,
which
is a long time to like have no contact with the outside world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of insane, but yeah, that sounds really interesting. So you've only watched like the last 2 seasons, or did you like go back and try to watch all of them?
So I'm currently watching this season, which this season from the true Big Brother fans say is not as good as the rest of them.
Okay.
So if you're gonna watch, you can start this one, but don't let it be your kind of opinion on the show. Last season was actually really good.
Okay.
I enjoyed it a lot, and that was the first season I watched it live.
Okay.
But if you pay for CBS All Access, which is like $6 a month or something like that, that's what gives you access to the live feeds, and the live feeds is how you can like literally watch these people 24/7. Otherwise, you could just watch the show for free on TV. But if you get the All Access, you have the ability to go back and watch past seasons.
Okay.
And so I've done that with I think 3 different seasons.
Okay.
And so for a newcomer, I would say season 16, I believe, is like my favorite, and the person that wins is my favorite player, I think, of all time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that was a good selling point. You're a lot better at the selling thing than I am. All right, so I'll have to check that out. That's pretty interesting. All right, I'll go on to my third show. So this third show actually connects a little bit to the second show. So the second show I had was Community, and this third one is 30 Rock, and this one I believe is also quite underrated. This one, of my three, I've rewatched this one the least, but it's still pretty frequent on my rewatch list. For those of you who don't know, it's basically a fictionalization of Saturday Night Live. So basically, they show the relationship between writers, the sketch actors, and then the show's creator. In this one, it's more of the executive of the network, which is Lorne Michaels, and Alec Baldwin plays a fictionalized version of himself, and it is extremely funny. And it kind of is how I'd picture working in New York City on a comedy sketch show that only goes on once a week on Saturday nights. And in this world, the show is not as successful as most people know. Saturday Night Live is extremely successful, has been on the air over 40 years. This show is one of those shows that's always on the verge of cancelization. And that's actually the pilot episode, is they basically get canceled unless they can get a big star. And they get Tracy Morgan. And Tracy Morgan basically plays himself in this one. And they get him to join the show, and it keeps the show alive. And extremely funny. And so the way it connects to my second show is Donald Glover was attending school at NYU and was releasing YouTube videos of like sketch comedy, basically, with him and some of his roommates. Tina Fey, the creator of 30 Rock and the star, she saw it and offered him a writing position. And he is also in the show. He plays a bunch of random characters throughout. Like he plays a homeless man and just a bunch of random characters throughout. And that actually led him to get the job at Community. And so that's a really cool kind of connection to those shows as well. But yeah, extremely funny show. I think really underrated. And it has like, it feels like every season there's rocky parts. But for the most part, you'll be satisfied season one to the end. It's a really good show.
That's awesome. I didn't know that about Donald Glover, so I'm already wrong in what I said like 20 minutes ago when I said Community was where he got his start. I'm glad you like saved it till now to like tell me that. But yeah, that's super cool. I didn't know that. 30 Rock is definitely a show that I gave a shot, but I think I was too young to appreciate the level of humor that it was. So I just haven't really tried watching it since then. So 30 Rock has always kind of been a show for me. It's like, it's not that funny, but I don't think I really gave it like a fair shot once I became more aware of things like as a teenager, you know, like, so I'll have to rewatch that one.
It's definitely funnier the older you are, in my opinion, because it was one of those shows where I tried to like watch it when I was too young to prove that I was like more mature. Like, no, I get this. And you almost fake laugh at like when you know there's supposed to be a punchline, even though you don't get it. That's how I kind of got into it. And it's one of those shows that I just watch randomly. And then all of a sudden I did a huge watch of it. So I'm excited to see. Yeah. I'm excited to see if anyone like watches it now, because it's definitely not as popular as it once was, but it's underrated. That's, I think my three shows are a little bit underrated. People watch them, people like them, but I don't feel like they're talked about as much as they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the point of this episode, and so hopefully the people listening, out of this, I'm glad we had 6 different shows. I thought maybe we would have had Barry on there. Yeah. You're the one that recommended that one to me.
Yep.
But between the 6 shows, you know, hopefully the people listening, thank you for listening. Give one of those 6 shows a shot and let us know how you feel about those. Tell us if we were right or tell us if we were wrong.
Yeah. No, I would love to see if someone watches one of the shows we recommended. That'd be really cool. So yeah, for sure, let us know. Thank you again for listening to Nate's Notes. This episode was a little different if you listened to other ones. Usually we only do one kind of deep dive of a topic or question per week, but we're actually going to do two this week. So this is one. We talked all about TV shows, our 3 favorite TV shows, and some of you might also disagree with our opinions on these shows. So for sure, let us know on social media what you think about our 6 favorite shows, the 6 shows that we picked here, and any recommendations for us. You've heard what we like, so maybe like, hey, based on your sense of humor, based on what you suggested, you would really like da-da-da. That'd be really cool as well. And so on Thursday, we'll have our special guest, James, talk all about golf. We talked about everything from the PGA Tour to how to get a better golf swing. His dad was a golf pro, so he talks a lot about his experiences with that. So that was really cool. We appreciate James for coming on. So that'll be out on Thursday. And if you want to get the most up-to-date, know exactly when episodes drop, you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just look up Nate's Notes and you can find us there. And yeah, anything you want to add before we wrap up the show, Griffin?
Thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again. Tell your friends. Tell your mom. All right. See you next week.